But I don't know if the idea of what I thought it looked like was just a comfort based upon like my skin tone and growing up with at least food in my house. Some stuff like that. I just don't know if maybe my idea was just a luxury or something. I don't know. Do you know what I'm kind of saying a little bit? I'm just kind of scared.
Yes, well, I think that's a question that everybody's being driven to answer, partly because there's intense moral pressure to ask yourself that question, To what degree was your privilege unearned? Well, there's an easy answer to that, actually. Lots of it.
Yeah.
But the same holds true with virtually everyone else.
Yeah.
And so who's got privilege depends a lot on what group you're willing to use as a comparison.
Yeah.
So even impoverished people in North America are rich by world standards.
Yeah.
They're in the top 1%, generally speaking. And they're certainly in the top 1% by historical standards. The problem with hammering home the idea of undeserved privilege is that there's no one who can't be crucified on that particular cross.
Right.
Unless you're born naked in the middle of a field with nothing.
Yeah.
Everyone is the undeserved recipient of the fruits of the past. The fact that you have a mother is a privilege. You didn't earn that. And so when you say you deserve nothing because of your privilege, what makes you so sure you're not saying that to everyone for all time? In which case, no one ever gets anything that they can have for their own. So it's a very dangerous game. Well, I don't see where it can end. It's not obvious, because imagine each person has multiple identities. That's intersectionality. We all have multiple identities. You're privileged along some of those identities, and relatively speaking, and less along others. So if you're young and black and female, well, you're young.
Right.
So that's not deserved. It's not like you earned being young. And so
there's always going to be some way there's always going to be some form of privilege in every regard. Yeah, I certainly didn't feel privileged growing up. I mean, I feel like a lot of what I've had in my life has certainly been earned. I felt disadvantaged in a lot of ways, emotionally, and there's always, I think everybody would have their own discussion, their own, not their own parameters, but I could see how everybody would have pluses and minuses.
Well, that's why I think the right level of analysis is the individual, and when you move away from that, it gets dangerous. It gets dangerous quickly, and it gets dangerous for everyone. And the reason why is the reason that you just laid out. You take any individual person, you can point to the advantages that they had. Now, look, I understand that some people, I was a clinician for a long time, and I saw people who had lives that were so hard that you could barely even imagine it. I had one client who was impaired intellectually. She lived with an aunt who was schizophrenic, who had an alcoholic boyfriend who was extremely violent and also schizophrenic, who used to bother her about being possessed by Satan. She was so
I hate Satan.
Ashamed that she couldn't look anyone in the eye. She would walk down the street with her hand like this, sort of bowed down, because she felt so unworthy. She wasn't an attractive person. She looked like a street person, so people treated her badly, all things considered. Now, look, I saw her at this hospital that I was working at, where the inpatients were people who were in even worse shape than her. They were people so hurt that they couldn't be deinstitutionalized. And I saw her because she had decided that she wanted to take one of these institutionalized people for a walk when she was out walking her dog. So despite all her catastrophes, which were plenty, she could still see outside of herself to someone who had it even worse. It was really something. You know, yeah. Well, and so this privilege game, it's like, well, look to your own privilege. And that isn't, I'm not saying that there aren't historical injustices, but
of course
there are many of them.
Right, there are for everyone in a lot of ways, yes. But if we only look at the victim side of things anyway, even as a human, if I only see myself as a victim, I'm really going to have a tough time. I can see myself, I can respect that I'm a victim of some things, but if I only see myself as a victim, it's going to make the rest of my life pretty tough, I feel like.
Well, it also matters what it matters what you want to do about the fact that you're a victim. Do you want to take away from other people? You know, it isn't that, and that.
I don't know. I kind of put us on a lot of different planes here at once.
Oh, that's okay. Well, that was a very complicated problem, and it's one that, you know, I think is particularly relevant to your particular country at this particular time and place, because the tapestry is under assault. And the thing is, it's a lot easier to burn something up or to cut.